Okay, good. Well, it's 7:02 and time to welcome everybody who's shown up to the meeting tonight. We've got a little special presentation. It's always nice to have a little variety. Some of you get tired of Scott and my voice. Not very often though. No, okay, Alice, we're glad that you don't get tired of them. In person, we get to jump up and down, online, we have to kind of raise and lower our voice a little bit to kind of keep you engaged. And are there any new people that have come to the class tonight? Clarice, so if you could unmute and just care to share how you found out about the classes. We're just kind of curious.
Sure. Do you know Sherry Bosch?
Of course.
Okay, that's what I thought. She told me about it, so I'm here because of her. So you
Yay
can send
for
her
Sherry.
Yep, yep.
Well, we're
Yeah,
glad to have you.
In.
Glad to have you, and stick around. Tonight is not what you would call an introductory class, but you're going to hear some of the issues that are involved with the introduction, but even more advanced about autoimmune disorders and that sort of thing. So
great.
Just stick with a few more classes too. And you like doing the online as opposed to in person?
Well, I'm going to try and come to the Friday night one. That's the in-person one too, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I may be in Portland Friday night, but if not, I will be here.
Okay, and so you don't have to come to every class. You come to the ones you're able to, and you'll find that the message is similar at each one of the classes. It's just different evidence-based science that we share at each of the different classes. But the bottom
get it
line,
in my brain.
Yes, and sometimes you need to hear things more than once, twice, or 3 or 5 times. For many of us, we need to do that before it sits well, or we choose to do something different. So anyway, welcome.
Thank you. I was looking forward.
Great.
Or I am looking forward.
Good deal. Anybody else new? I think I recognize most everybody else who is in the room. Been here before. So tonight is a session which is going to be dedicated to autoimmune disorders, but we've got a special guest speaker who is also, I guess, our main lead coach for helping people transition, for those who are having difficulty transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet. She's also a good coach in helping you with, options like Facebook and book clubs and, you name it. Lisa Chik has it all. Fun to listen to. And she's going to share some of her story with you tonight. And I'm sure she'll answer any questions for you. And if we have time after she gets done, we're going to share a few more videos with you and answer your questions. And we'll probably even get around to the varicose vein issue. Okay, so with that said, Lisa, have fun.
Thanks, Dr. Ross. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa, and I am in my 5th and last year of medical school at Western University down here in Los Angeles. So we also have a sister campus in Lebanon, Oregon, which is how I'm connected with a lot of you guys up in Oregon. So tonight I'm going to share just generally my journey in lifestyle medicine and focusing a little bit on autoimmune diseases as well. And I did give pretty much this presentation last month during one of Dr. Ross's afternoon classes, so it might sound familiar to maybe a handful of you. So let me get my screen shared here. All right. So I'll start with just some background about my family because they're a big part of all the things that I do. This is my dad on the left and my mom on the right. I also have a brother. My dad and I actually share the same birthday, so this was us a couple of months ago. And then my mom and I went to Seattle last December. Both of my parents are from Hong Kong and they immigrated here in their early 20s. So yeah, I owe a lot to them and they've influenced a lot of my life. I'm also very close with my grandparents here. This is my grandpa and we are celebrating his 90th birthday earlier this year. And then my grandma, who's I think about 85 or so, and my two cousins on the side, and there's my brother. So this is me. This is at LA Live, and I was at an event for lupus because I was diagnosed with lupus when I was about 16 or 17 years old. And lupus is one of the many autoimmune diseases. It's more common in younger females and women of color, especially. There are many causes for lupus. I don't think anyone knows exactly why it happens, and it's also probably different for different people. So I think lupus is a good example of nature and nurture affecting us, which, by the way, if you haven't watched the twin experiment on Netflix that came out earlier in January, that is a really good experiment where they tested out diet and on twins and talked about the nature and nurture. But anyway, for me, I was taking this medication called Accutane, which is like a really potent vitamin A. Has some serious side effects, and it's only reserved for people who have really severe acne. So my brother had taken this medication and did fine and has great skin. So then I took it. And then after about a month of having this Accutane, which is just, a couple of pills, I had a fever for about a week. And it was a weird fever that was coming like at the same time every day. And then it would get better and then it would come back. So eventually I went to see a doctor and finally I was diagnosed with drug-induced lupus. So I stopped taking this Accutane, but my lupus stayed. So they could do blood tests for the lupus and they see if your symptoms have resolved. But I was still having some symptoms and I was still showing the positive markers for lupus. So it was an example of how nature is influenced by nurture, and the Accutane pretty much triggered my underlying lupus. At this time, there are other things that trigger diseases, as you all know, right? Stress being one of them. And when I was in high school, I would be involved in everything, and I would go to bed at 11 o'clock. I would wake up at 3 a.m. to finish my homework and then go to school at 6 a.m. because I was president of the marching band. I was editor-in-chief of our paper. I wasn't willing to give up any of these things. But now, we're reading the sleep book in our book club and do not recommend you know, having a sleep schedule like that because it takes a toll on your body. So anyway, I was diagnosed with lupus, and these are some of the symptoms that you can have with lupus. It's a very mysterious disease because people present differently. Like my story is not a typical lupus story because there kind of isn't a typical lupus story. You can present with all sorts of symptoms. I, for example, have this butterfly rash still, and if I just step out into the sun for a few seconds, it'll just flare up. And there's like this classic nasal labial fold where it doesn't get red around your nose. And then a lot of lupus patients will have joint pain and other rashes as well, fever, fatigue. So it's kind of an interesting disease, and there's a lot of research happening about how to diagnose it faster and also how to treat it. Overall, though, basically, my immune system is just very dramatic. It likes to overreact to everything. And one example of this, which is probably the craziest thing that happened to me when I was diagnosed with lupus, were these bug bites. These were bug bites that turned into blisters and then it turned into just like golf ball sized blisters. This was also not when I was very first diagnosed with lupus, but this was during the beginning of COVID. So I was really nervous about going into the hospital or doctors or anything like that. So I just tried. I was told that they would reabsorb. Long story short, they did not reabsorb. I went to urgent care. They popped them for me and they're healed now. But when I get bug bites, this is the kind of thing that happens. Again, just not typical. But to shine some more light on what lupus is, I wanted to share this video with you all.
Lupus is hard to describe.
How would I describe lupus?
A internal war with your own body.
Do you feel like you have been hit by a Mack truck?
Lupus feels like someone smacked you in the face.
You know, they're like, you don't look like you have lupus.
People don't realize that it's painful, physically and mentally.
Lupus is like the bully at school that you always try to avoid, but it always finds you, beats you up, and takes something away. Your friends, your energy, or even your ability to do simple things.
It's unpredictable and hard for others to see.
It's like waking up every morning to your own personal game of the lupus lottery.
You now have chronic pain, extreme fatigue, and kidney failure.
It's hard to understand.
Lupus is hard to wrap your head around.
The simplest way I can describe it is
the never-ending flu.
Lupus is a chronic autoimmune condition where your immune system starts to attack self. In lupus, that attack can be on any organ system in the body, which makes it difficult to diagnose. It's a chronic disease. There's no cure. It tends to target women between the ages of 15 and 45, and women of color are 4 times more likely to develop lupus.
It's hard to live with.
Imagine driving a car, but your taillights are out, your tires are going flat, your parking brake is engaged, you're leaking fuel, but yet you still have to figure out how to merge onto this interstate at a high speed. You have to still do it. That's what living with lupus is like.
It's hard to treat.
Lupus feels like you are in a boxing match and you are blindfolded with your hands tied behind your back and you're supposed to fight. How can you fight?
It's difficult to diagnose because every patient can look a little differently. There is no cure for lupus, but there are medications out there that can help treat the disease.
Lupus is hard,
but you're not alone.
I get answers I need on lupus on lupus.org.
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 Okay, so any questions about lupus? Or does anyone know of someone who has lupus? Oh yeah, okay. It's actually it's pretty common, which is surprising because we don't know a ton about it. But it's encouraging to see that some people, might be able to relate to this because you know someone, or maybe you yourself have lupus. Any questions?
It's horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible. There's also a spectrum. For example, for me, I haven't really had a flare since I was diagnosed. And, that could be due to a whole host of reasons, lifestyle factors that I've tried to, take good care of, genetics as well. But it is one of those diseases that kind of flares and then you go into remission. And the best thing to do is try to prevent the flares. So lupus was obviously a big part of my life, but I feel like it's actually been a really positive part of my life because it really kicked me in the right direction to start taking care of my own health at an earlier age. So once I was diagnosed with lupus, that was the end of high school, and then I moved on here. Does anyone know where this might be?
At Western University?
Not quite. A different university. This here is right down in this statue is Theodore Seuss Geisel, otherwise known as Dr. Seuss. And that is, if you can see, the cat in the hat. And this is Geisel Library at UC San Diego, which maybe you've seen Inception, and I think this was supposed to inspire something in the movie Inception. But I went to UC San Diego for my undergrad, and I majored in physiology, and I minored in human development and psychology, which was fantastic. Also at UC San Diego, I took my very first nutrition class. So 20 something years, and I had never learned anything about nutrition. And I wouldn't have either at UCSD because this was just an elective nutrition class that I wanted to take because my brother had taken it. And luckily, this didn't give me lupus or any other disease, but I followed in my brother's footsteps. And what was really fun about this class was that I was encouraged to try different things. So I did a month of gluten-free. Then I tried dairy-free. Then I tried, at this time, I wasn't whole food plant-based, so I tried meat-free. And it was just fun to experiment and see what I would notice about my body changing. I was also motivated because I still had acne. And that really made me want to figure out what about my diet I could change. So I started doing a lot of meal prepping because it saved me time. This was just brown rice and edamame, tofu, sweet potatoes, and broccoli. Here is tofu ground beef, which I would start to make in batches, and then I would use it in taco salads or whatever you would want to put ground beef in. And it was really easy to make, and it kept well for a long time. So got to experiment with more recipes too. And then I also participated as a research assistant in the Successful Aging and Evaluation Study, which was part of UCSD's Geriatric Psychiatry Department. And my role was to drive to this really amazing retirement home in National City. And I interviewed over 100 seniors that were living there. Each of these interviews was like 2 hours long. And the goal was to focus on what was making people live a healthy, happy life, because the residents at this retirement home were like elderly, but very healthy and happy. Little did I know that I was basically my own Dan Buettner of the Blue Zones, because I was getting to talk to these people and learning from them. And does anyone have a guess as to what it was that we concluded was making these people so healthy and happy?
Diet.
Diet was definitely a huge component, but when it came down to it, it was actually their social connection and avoiding this loneliness and maintaining good relationships. And also this sense of purpose with sharing their wisdom and just keeping connected with the community. So then after UC San Diego, I moved here. And does anyone care to guess where this is? I'll tell you, it's not California, at least not Southern California.
Colorado?
Yes, it is Colorado. And for me, that was the first time I ever experienced fall and winter appropriately, and it was amazing. I moved to Colorado to work as a member of the AmeriCorps. So I was working as a teacher in an underserved school, elementary school, which gave me the idea to start a cooking class for the kids. And this is the kind of thing I tried to get them to make. These were spring rolls with lots of veggies. This was English muffin pizzas, yes, with cheese, and black bean tacos with cheese. My goal here was to really just introduce the kids to more foods than their chicken nuggets and fries that they were getting in their cafeteria. And for whatever reason, cheese was the only way to get them to try new things. You know, if I sprinkled some cheese on it, then they would be willing to try it. So it was a success to me that they were excited to add some greens into their food and just be excited about what they were making. As a health coach now, I still feel like having mindset of adding to your diet versus having to just eliminate things is helpful for some people. And then finally, I went to Western, or I still go to Western. I started off in the COVID years. So my first 2 years of school, if you aren't familiar with medical school, is just didactics. So that means you're learning from PowerPoints, you're learning from lectures. All of that I did on Zoom because of COVID. And then your next 2 years, you go on rotations, which means you go to different hospitals or clinics, and you spend a month doing OP or a month doing surgery. And to just learn from different doctors in the hospital. I think someone's unmuted. Let me just
Yeah, that's me. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So I also opted to add a year to my medical schools, which is why I'm now in my 5th year as a DO, or a doctor of osteopathic medicine. I was able to add 1 year of fellowship. So for those of you who aren't familiar with an MD versus a DO, I wanted to play a short clip from here.
The majority of licensed medical physicians practicing medicine in the US today are MDs, also known as medical doctors. However, there's also an increasing number of practicing physicians known as DOs, which means Doctors of Osteopathic Medicine. Both are equally licensed to practice medicine in all 50 states. I want to make one point very clear before we start. One degree is not better than the other. In fact, they have so many similarities, it would probably take an hour to cover them. This video is going to focus only on the differences between an MD and a DO. The most evident difference between the two is that DOs practice something called OMT, which is osteopathic manipulative therapy. Instead of just telling you, I'd much rather show you. Come on. Osteopathic manipulation is a hands-on therapeutic tool whereby manipulating the body's own tissues can restore and maintain optimal function. And it's a low-risk, conservative measure that can be used in place of medication and surgery. And it treats all types of ailments, everything from low back pain to something more complex like congestive heart failure. Take a deep breath in, deep breath out. How's that feel?
Really good.
In osteopathic medical school, there's a heavy emphasis placed on the holistic medical approach. Now, what does that mean? It means an extra focus on the body's own ability to heal itself, a focus on prevention, and a focus on the whole patient instead of just the disease process. Just because there's a heavier emphasis placed on this holistic model in osteopathic school, it doesn't mean that MDs don't practice with this model as well. There are plenty of MDs who treat with the whole patient philosophy in mind. Those first two differences were just differences in medical school training. Now let's move on to residency, which is arguably the most important part of medical training. In order for a residency program to be considered legitimate, it needs to be authorized by an accreditation council. And currently there are two accreditation councils, one for MDs and one for DOs. DOs can train under either accreditation council. However, MDs can only train under the MD banner. Come 2020, those two accreditation councils will merge and allow residents to train under a unified council, further strengthening my point that there are becoming less and less differences between the two degrees. Now, how about practicing internationally? Well, here, MDs have a distinct advantage.
Okay, so that's a little bit about MDs versus DOs, in case you've never thought about the difference. There's some things I like about the video and some things I don't. The cracking the neck is what some people associate with DOs or with chiropractors. The difference between DOs and chiropractors are that DOs are more specific in terms of what we adjust in the body. We will find a diagnosis, meaning we will find a specific segment, of your vertebrae or a specific restriction in your body and treat that. Versus chiropractors sometimes are more general and will just kind of, go down your back and crack everything, which is helpful for some people, but it could be more dangerous too. And there are a lot of other techniques that DOs use that are more gentle than the cracking and can be very effective, especially for older folks too, who may not respond to the cracking as well. For example, like the varicose veins that someone was asking about, there are lymphatic techniques that will help with blood flow and help get your circulation moving better. And we use it with medication and with surgery. It's not always in place of them, but if we can help you alleviate your pain without taking ibuprofen or Tylenol, then it's a good suggestion, or at least a good option for patients to know about. And if you've ever had health coaching with me and you've had any muscle pains or, like numbness, tingling, things like that, then I've probably told you about some techniques that you can do at home to help alleviate those restrictions. So I've added an extra year to my training to learn more about those manipulations, and that has allowed me to learn more about structure and function and anatomy in the body and how it can also affect things like diabetes and heart failure and other more chronic ailments too. So in addition to nutrition, which we all know and love, exercise is very important too, and preventing injuries, especially as we get older. So a project that I focused on was stretching and getting patients to stretch. So if you just take a second right now and sit up straight in your chair or stand up straight, whichever you're comfortable with. And then just turn your head using your neck only to the left as far as you can comfortably. And then turn to the right. You might notice that one side goes a little bit further than the other, or you might notice that one side is a little bit painful when you reach the end. Go ahead and tilt your head so that your ear is moving towards your shoulder one way. We call that side bending. And then to the other side. And same thing, you might notice a difference there. So now I'll show you this video that I worked on as a OMM fellow to encourage patients to do some stretching. Oops. Maybe not.
This is the upper trapezius, levator scapulae, and scalene muscle stretch. To begin, you'll bring, if you're seated, your right hand down to grasp onto the chair or stool. If you're standing, you'll tuck your right hand back towards your back left pocket and then stabilize with that left hand. The right arm will be the stabilizing arm in this case, or the arm tucked behind your back. And then begin to side bend your head away from that stabilizing arm. So in this case, to the left, until you feel a stretch in the upper trapezius muscle. You'll hold this for 20 seconds. And then to stretch the levator scap, you will begin to flex your neck down so your chin comes into your chest, and then side bend and rotate your head away from that stabilizing arm, so to the left in this case. Now you should feel a stretch more in the posterior part of your neck, the levator scap. You'll hold this for 20 seconds. And then for the scalene muscle stretch, you'll begin to extend your head back, as well as press your chest out for deeper extension, feeling a stretch more in the anterior part of your neck with your scaling muscles. You should feel the stretch here, but don't stretch too much into discomfort. You'll again hold this for 20 seconds and then slowly return back to a neutral spine and release your hand. So this is the upper trap, levator scap, and scalene muscle stretch.
So if you did that exercise, go ahead and just turn again to the left and to the right and side bend one way and the other. And you might notice the difference. You might notice it got worse because we only did one side, and you might feel like you need to do the other side now. But that's something that more often osteopathic physicians are trained in knowing about stretches like this and the different anatomy to focus on. So that can be helpful in alleviating, like if you're having numbness and tingling down your arms, maybe when you're sleeping, you might have some compression in this near your clavicle, and we call that thoracic outlet or inlet syndrome. And then there's also other techniques that DOs will be able to perform on you versus you doing yourself. So while I was at Western University, I finally met Dr. Ross and Scott and learned about the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. Nutrition, which that's why most of you are here, physical activity, stress management, sleep, social connection, avoiding risky substances. With Dr. Ross's guidance, I've been able to meet with a lot of you and just get to know you and your individual situations and goals, and just form this great community and really get a lot of good experience for myself. We have the Live Lifestyle Medicine website with so many great resources, and the Facebook group, which is 562 members now. And I felt like lifestyle medicine was just the key to everything for my own health, for my family, for all the patients. And I felt like we were not learning about it in our school, which recently has been changing. We've been able to get some of our curriculum approved through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and eventually more and more of it will be approved so that hopefully students will be able to sit for the exam and become board certified in lifestyle medicine. In the meantime, I am a huge proponent of taking this knowledge and applying it to ourselves. So this quote, "Your beliefs don't make you a better person, your behavior does." I share that with students because we all like to take in the information and we all agree that it's good to have a healthy diet and to exercise and to sleep, but then we just don't do it ourselves. And our patients can tell that we're not doing it, and it doesn't motivate them to do it. So then we started this book club, and I started doing some workshops for the students. The book club is open to the students and to the community, which is all of you, with the goal of showing the students too what it's like to make these changes from the patient perspective. And you're all welcome to join if you're interested. So I will just wrap up with some pictures of food because it's fun to look at food. This is from the Lifestyle Medicine Conference in Colorado last October, where they fed us amazing food and so much variety and color. Some of these things, I don't even know what it was, but it was delicious. This was tempeh, salads with everything, baked potato, beans, hummus, guacamole, oatmeal, sweet potato hash, farro and asparagus. It was quite fancy. And even some desserts. And I got to meet Scott here in person, which was really fun. We attended some lectures together. I also got to meet the great Dr. Greger, who is hilarious in person and just super nice. He has this broccoli shirt in purple, which he wore also at the conference. It was fantastic. This is something that I made that I usually make for Thanksgiving. It's like butternut squash and Brussels sprouts, walnuts, pomegranates. I make this because Thanksgiving has traditionally been kind of a difficult holiday with my family, as well as other family gatherings, because I'm the only one that's plant-based. And there's a lot of pushback from my family, especially in the beginning. And it took years before they realized that just because they put it on my plate didn't mean that I was going to eat it. And now we respectfully know that I will sit close to the veggies and they can sit close to the meats. So we have a compromising Thanksgiving spread that still includes turkey and roast beef and salmon, but also sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes and green beans and whatever else that I decide to bring. I've even gotten my grandma to make some food with me that's plant-based, like these tofu red cabbage wraps. And my dad loves to eat snacks while watching sports, so I made this plant-based bean dip, wild rice and mushrooms. I've really gotten into the meal prepping, so this was like oatmeal bars that are really easy to make yourself, soup and pasta sometimes. This was my grandma. I taught her to make a vegan potato salad for July 4th. We did spring rolls together as a family, which was fun. This was last year when I got to visit Dr. Ross, and this is him and Christine fed us, which was amazing. There's a whole piece of garlic somewhere in here. I think both of these were together for breakfast, and this must have been a different breakfast too. This is hibiscus tea with dried hibiscus flowers, and it gets way darker. This was just like immediately after I mixed the water and the flowers together. It's great in the summertime, lowers your blood pressure. I've been toying with the idea of opening this cafe once I establish my practice. And so I want to also have mocktails, which are really fun and super easy to make, and they look beautiful. And this was also a date sweetened hot chocolate for the winter time. So all this to say, it is totally doable to transition from whatever diet you're on to a plant-based diet. Even the alcohol, you can make the transition. Because of my lupus and because I just don't like it. I've never had alcohol, and I probably never will. But I don't think I'm really missing out on anything. And like I said, I've not had any lupus flares at all, really, since I was diagnosed over 10 years ago. And I think that's a large part due to all this lifestyle medicine stuff. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. That's great.
Thanks.
I want your potato salad recipe.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
Are you on the Facebook page, Jerry? No, okay. I'll send it to you. I think I have your email address.
The word that comes to my mind is hope. Hope for the future when listening to Lisa talk about her journey and transition. It's hope for so many other people in our population. If we could just make it easier for them, and if they could just make a choice, a behavioral choice after they learn the benefits. So we've got a culture that doesn't really promote doing what she's doing right now. Although she has managed to compromise between the standard American fare and the healthiest options, as her Thanksgiving spread indicated. And anyway, kudos to you, Lisa, for how far you've come and how you encourage others along the path.
Thank you. It's always, that's why I still come to the classes, even though the information has not changed too much. It's really just to see everyone and see all of you who are really like potential patients for me and keep me motivated.
Do you still live in California?
I do, yes. Yeah, but I offer health coaching on Zoom, and there's a link for that in the class website and the emails. So
And
that's
is the Facebook sign up on the website?
I believe so. It's definitely in the email newsletter.
It's in both. Facebook is on the homepage of the website and in the class newsletter. And so yeah, definitely, if you haven't signed up, subscribe to the weekly class newsletter. I can show you on the homepage, to the top of the homepage of livelifestylemedicine.com. You can sign up there.
Thank you.
Debbie, hand is up.
Hey, Lisa, I just wondered what your plans are for beginning your own practice, or, um, I wonder how you're gonna meld everything you've learned, and especially with the manipulation part too, and what kind of practice you're thinking of.
Yeah, I am going to be applying for a family medicine residency program. And I chose family medicine because I really wanted to focus on the preventive medicine, keeping people from getting sick. And I wanted my day to be filled with seeing healthy patients stay healthy, which is, it might be a little idealistic, but I wanted to have um, a focus on that, a focus on the lifestyle medicine, and be able to incorporate osteopathic manipulations because it's kind of a dying practice. There are a lot of students who go through osteopathic school, but again, the healthcare system isn't really conducive to spending that much time with patients and teaching them those techniques. So if I can find a system that is conducive to that, sign me up. If not, I'll have to make my own.
Best of luck to you.
What state?
Most of my family is in California, Southern California, so that's one reason to stay down here. But if it were up to just me, I'd be willing to go anywhere along the West Coast.
Alice, you're unmuted.
Well, so Lisa, you're off all meds. Is that correct?
I'm pretty much off all meds there. Sometimes they toy with the Plaquenil a little bit.
Okay. And you notice any foods that trigger things, or what do you like as you've done this for the last 10 years, things that help, things that make things worse?
Yeah, the stress is really the biggest one, with being in medical school and all, and taking care of my grandparents. But I found ways to just try to manage that as best I can. If you've been to the book club, so I'm trying to meditate more, and that's been tough for me. But I think just changing my perspective on things that are stressful, just as a habit, has been the bigger help. It's hard to set aside time to meditate and to journal. But there are like stressful things that come at us all the time. So I feel like if I can just manage how I internalize those events, then I do a lot better. In terms of diet, the fried food is absolutely the worst. I avoid it as much as I can, and that I think is the best for me. Sometimes people ask me, especially in the holidays, like, what am I going to do with this party coming up? Or, I have a wedding, all these big events. And I sometimes tell people, if you feel like it's preventing you from enjoying those social interactions, just try, the normal diet that you would have eaten, the standard American diet. And then most often they don't feel so good afterwards, but they wouldn't have known that if they didn't have that standard American diet after having done the Whole Foods for a little while. And sometimes that is the motivation that they need. Like, a little slip up, and then they realize, okay, I actually was doing the right thing, and I should stay on that path. A long answer to your question, Alice.
I've been having problems with my weight, and I borderline diabetic. I was type 2, and then I didn't got rid of it, and then my diabetic is coming back, and been having problems, and did a lot of nutrition classes, but they didn't work for me.
Lisa, did you want to respond to that?
What was the last part that you said, Jennifer? I missed it.
They didn't work for her, the nutrition classes that she attended before.
Oh. I think everybody is different, and that's why I really enjoy the one-on-one health coaching, because everyone has a different reason for doing it, different resources, even down to like what's available to you in your kitchen. Do you have an air fryer? Do you have a stove? Do you have a microwave? Or, you know, what kind of grocery stores do you have access to? I think if you have the time to talk to someone who can walk through all of that with you and then build a more specific plan that's custom to you, you might feel more supported and you might have a better success.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So Doug. Unmute yourself first, Doug.
I'm sorry. Just an anecdote. Maybe a year and a half ago, first time I came on this class, information was being thrown at me like a fire hose, and I was always about 2 steps behind. And I heard when I was a teenager, younger adult, 60 years ago, there was a positive, a word that had positive antidote to was referring to an attractive female as a chick. And I heard Dr. Ross comment in the background when I was trying to think, referring to you as a chick. And I was shocked that he would use this expression. That's all. Although it was appropriate.
That's a good clarification.
Yes.
I definitely don't plan on changing my last name because I think Dr. Chik would be a good one to remember.
I'd like to go back to Jennifer for a moment. Jennifer, do you know how to access some additional health coaching from what you've learned so far, or is that still a mystery?
It's still a mystery. My computer's not working right now, so I'm not just busy on my phone. So that's what I've been using. But I want to actually get with a one-on-one coach and figure this out, because my doctor's not helping me any, and she just keeps stressing me out more. So I'm having a really hard time with everything. Right now.
So are you able to get in the chat room?
I don't know. I had to have my caregiver help me get into this.
I see. So there must be an easier way in which you could send an email or somehow that we can get in touch with you so that can get you hooked up.
Yeah. I just gotta figure it out.
Jennifer, do you have an email address?
I do.
Okay. Do you want, you could tell me what it is if you're comfortable with that, or you could put it in the chat if you're able to.
All right. It's Jennifer, all lowercase, Dickens, all lowercase, 162@gmail.com.
Is that Jennifer Dickens, Dickens?
Yes,
162.
162@gmail.com.
Okay. You got that, Lisa?
Yeah, I'll send you an email right now.
Okay.
All right.
And I'll,
We're
and I'll go ahead and
closing.
sign you up for the, oh, sorry, I'll go ahead and sign you up for the class newsletter too. So you should get that email, a welcome
Okay.
newsletter for the class.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for speaking up.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions from the gallery? Any other thoughts about anything before? I think, Scott, you were going to go show the website a little bit, particularly for new person or two.
Heck yeah.
Clarice, go ahead, unmute yourself.
I get these different nutrition newsletters and what have you, and I can't remember the name, but I've gotten a couple that say never eat oats or quinoa, and yet I've read a lot of things where oats are supposed to be really good and quinoa is supposed to be good. And sometimes I don't know what to believe. And to be honest with you, I don't read the whole article because they get some of these articles are so long, or the people talks on and on and on and on. And I just don't have time to listen to it. But then I think, well, during the pandemic, I was eating oatmeal, many times a week. And quinoa seemed to be a good alternative. So there's just so much information out there that potentially is conflicting, but I don't really know if it is conflicting. Does that make sense?
It does. Scott, do you want to address that?
Sure. So that's what these classes are kind of all about, because there is so much what seems like conflicting information. I felt the same way when I first was getting into nutrition, because I thought, oh, there was a big debate about what's the healthier way to eat. But then when you actually study the science and get into the academic level of nutrition and see what the consensus is, and you know who to trust and follow, essentially American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the World Health Organization and the Harvard School of Public Health, American College of Lifestyle Medicine. There is a pretty big consensus. There might be, maybe 5 to 10% of the information. There might be some little bit of differences as far as whether you need to be 100% vegan versus 100% whole food plant-based versus 90-95%. But I think the lesson is that as long as you're following reliable sources, you'll get the same message for probably 90 to 95% of everything. There's always going to be some slight differences, because the science of nutrition is challenging as far as getting concrete data on every single little aspect, because food is really difficult to study. It's not it's hard, it's easier to study things like drugs that can pack into a pill and get it compared to a placebo. But when you're talking about behavior and food and people's eating patterns, it's a little bit more challenging. And so I think here, if you stick with the classes and you follow Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, nutritionfacts.org, and some of the websites that we have on the class website, and just kind of decide, okay, this is what I'm going to trust and not get distracted by all the other books and things that are out there. And so I think that would be my advice from the beginning, is just to kind of just stick around here, and we'll point you in the right direction of all the reliable sources, and know that that's what the consensus is throughout the world. There's always going to be some new author that's trying to sell a book and publish an article, and it's a lot of times is information that's out of context and kind of misleading, kind of can be misleading, and a lot of times they're selling products and things like that. So I'll leave it at that, but I can also show the website when you're ready to kind of give you some information.
I think I get Dr. Greger's something or other website or newsletter or something. So he's a good guy, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, nutritionfacts.org. That's definitely a reliable source.
Okay, good.
He is a very reliable source, and I will tell you, and a short answer to your question is oatmeal and quinoa are both excellent choices and healthy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is the short answer.
Thank you.
Joan.
This is for Lisa. Lisa, I missed the book club, but I really have been enjoying the book on sleep. And it points out that all the times we did short nights or we did all-nighters and missed sleep, I worry about that because I did so many of those as a single mom, full-time teacher, and it sounds like you did some of those in your younger days. So how concerned are you about all the sleep we've lost?
That's a good question. For me, I think there's no changing that. That's what I did back then. And at the time, it felt necessary to get all the things done. COVID was actually helpful in that sense for me, that I had such a regular routine every day. I wasn't going out different places. That it helped me get a better sleep schedule. And so now it's just kind of moving forward and knowing what I know now about sleep and learning more through the book to just do the best that I can with it. And still probably some nights won't be ideal, but that's, that's life.
Thank
This
you.
has been really great. Thank you.
Alice.
Well, two questions. One is for Clarice. Like, do you recall what those why they said oatmeal and quinoa were bad?
Well, to tell you the truth, I look at the first paragraph and then I go, oh, forget it. And
okay.
The length of these newsletters and the length of the verbal thing, I guess I'm sorry, but I get irritated.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, say it in 20 minutes instead of an hour, please. So I will go back and look at the difference, but I've seen a couple that say don't eat oatmeal and quinoa, and yet for a long time I was eating the quinoa or oatmeal because I thought it was helpful for cholesterol.
It is, and it's usually the low carb camp that talks about avoiding grains because there's too many carbohydrates, and so they're trying to lose weight by keeping their carbohydrates super low and they eat lots of protein and fat, and so it's not a good way to go for long-term health.
Yeah.
I have a second question. This is for the group. It's a bit of a segue. So I'm feeling I started doing a little weightlifting class, and I go to this class and I have to bring my own little mini 3-pound weights because I try to keep light, and we do like 2 sets of 10 reps on things, and everybody else is using way bigger weights, way heavy, big free weights. So I was talking and I'm like, well, at the time, maybe I can do it, but the next day I'm just hurting so much. It's like not worth it. But my girlfriend, who has been a CrossFit person, was like, no, you have to lift the heavier weights. And hurting is good. Those are the micro tears that are going to make you stronger. And if you're sticking with these little baby weights, like you're not going to get anywhere with this. And I'm wondering what you guys think. And what your thoughts on that are.
Guess as long as you're not getting injured, yeah, it's okay to have some muscle fatigue and some soreness the next day, but you got to kind of progress slowly. You should, go from 3 pounds to 10 or 15 pounds, like in one workout. So you want to just slowly increase, and then increase if you're going to go to a higher weight, do less repetitions and then slowly build up the repetitions. So you don't want to change 2 things at once, a lot more weight and the same amount of repetitions, because then do more damage. And then if you get injured, then you're kind of setting yourself back. And so just go easy and go slow and build. But it is good to build up, because if you kind of do the same weight and same repetitions all the time, same frequency, you're still going to get benefits from maintaining it. But if you're trying to build muscle, you kind of have to, and you're doing it for like bone health, and you want to slightly increase the stress on the bones over time, and stress on the muscles to build, like they're saying, to micro tears, and then that builds up more muscle. So yeah, you just have to be careful. And it's always good. I always recommend people that if they're trying to get into something like that, if they can afford it, go get a personal trainer at a gym to kind of help you with that. And they if they're certified in personal training, they should, they'll give you that same message, not pushing too hard, too quick.
I like the personal trainer edition, coach. You can kind of keep gradually building up on your own. I wouldn't go to the heavy weights like Scott said initially and hurt yourself. But, having someone teaching you how to do this for your individual body is something I would prefer to do. Jerry, and then Doug.
For Jennifer, I thought that Dr. Greger's daily doesn't be just perfect, because you can go in depth a little bit if you need to. And also, when I began my transition, I wanted credit for what I wasn't doing. And it was like, I guess I thought it was a sacrifice. I don't know. I don't feel now like I sacrificed any foods, but sometimes I don't know what to eat. But like Charlie said, just, can you bake a potato? I tried to find somebody that catered, but I didn't make it very far. And I don't know. We had that one demonstration, remember, Joy at the Y? And I thought, and she used to anyway, cater in Denver or something. So I don't know, Marcia or Debbie or somebody thought that she would cater, maybe for a specific occasion or something. I don't know. I haven't called her, but I wanted credit for what I wasn't doing, and not being a cook was just really, really detrimental all my life.
I can cook, but I have a hard time cooking because I don't read very well. I have everything that I read is backwards, so I have a really hard time reading. And I use my Instant Pot a lot, so I cook a lot of vegetables and stuff, and I know how to do that, so that's what I use. But I lost my Instant Pot. My Instant Pot broke, so I haven't had another one. So cooking usually gets really hard for me at times. I have to have somebody read something to me, because I can't read very well.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Doug.
30 years ago, or when I was about 50 years ago, I was diagnosed with Addison's disease, and doctor tested me for different things and said it's autoimmune. And 25 years later, I was reading a reference book on hazardous materials, and they said carbon disulfide can wipe out your adrenals, and I'd been exposed to it as a lab assistant in college. And in the last 2 years, I've been diagnosed with celiac and Raynaud's. And a couple of weeks ago, Scott recommended one of Dr. Goldner's book, and I finished it on the way home from Florida today. And I just wondered what Lisa thought about, what she recommends is pretty drastic. All the greens, it's enormous. One person was eating a pound of greens a day. And Dr. Greger talks about 4 ounces a day, and I thought that was an enormous amount. I just wonder if you read any of her books and what you thought about it.
I haven't read through her books, but I've seen seen her talk through some interviews and have heard about her smoothies and all that good stuff. For me personally, I feel like I've been doing pretty well with my lupus and it's been managed well. And I just really enjoy eating. I really like eating and chewing my food and the whole experience. So for me, I haven't tried it out, but that doesn't mean it's not the right thing for someone.
She says to drink it, and Dr. Greger says you have to chew it. And I just watched a lecture of nutritionists at Loma Linda, and she wants you to chew 20 to 30 times before you swallow. So this is really extreme.
I think, somebody was asking me about intermittent fasting with health coaching, and all of these things I think are worth a try if you're interested in it and if you think that there's benefit to it. Just like what I was doing in college, I just tried it out for a few weeks, and the nutrition research is really difficult to control all the different variables and to publish, but you can do an experiment on yourself and just keep track of how you're feeling and any differences and see if it's something you want to keep up, or at least you've done it and you know that you don't want to do it again.
I was diagnosed with gastroparesis. I was diagnosed with gastroparesis about 4 or 5 years ago, and food has just been a hard choice for me. So, food's been a hard choice, and I have no teeth right now, so it's hard to chew anything. Hold on, guys. Okay, I gotta go into the other room. So food is really hard right now for me, with my gastroparesis because I never know what I can and can't eat, and have a hard time, keeping food down.
Well, gastroparesis definitely provides additional challenges to, helping you decide what is healthiest options for you.
Yeah. So I've been having that challenge for a really long time, and that's why I was hoping the classes I was going to would help, but I've difficulties trying
Well,
to figure it out.
Were the classes you were going to, did they eliminate animal products and processed foods and the oils and fats in your diet, or did they allow you to have those things?
They allowed me to have them, but I had to be careful, especially with fats and oils, because I could back up my system and get the point where I end up having diarrhea really bad for 2 weeks, or just feeling just totally terrible.
Yeah.
So they haven't really figured it out.
So it means that maybe restricting those things a bit at this point as an experiment to see if you don't do better by just maybe sticking with potatoes, sticking with fruit, that could be fairly easily absorbed.
Yeah.
Not going to lay in your stomach forever like any of the meat, dairy, and egg kind of issues.
Yeah. They just found out I have mild to severe gastroparesis. So it's difficult to eat anything.
Okay.
So it's interesting.
All right. I do want to address the issue on varicose veins briefly before Scott, you take over with the analysis. There's nutrition guide for clinicians put out by the Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine. They do address venous insufficiency and varicosities in a note that I have on my phone here. And, traditionally, after diagnosis is made, there are things like leg elevation, compression stockings, exercise, walking, and progressive resistance exercises up to 3 times a week contributes to improvement in the hemodynamic parameters and function. There are some drug therapies that can be used. There are some surgical options. And then they mention that high fiber diets may be helpful for some, but not for everyone, avoidance of overweight. And then there's some botanical treatments to include horse chestnut seed, which I have no clue what that is. There's a couple others that they list on their site, and you should be able to look it up if you do a search on the Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine. Butcher's broom, again, I've never used it, but they give you a dose, 150 milligrams, 2 to 3 times a day. And maritime pine bark.
Not to call me. It's a second time to call me. Okay, I will.
Okay. Scott, what do you
Looks
think?
like,
Do I need to
Well,
make you a host?
well, no, you can
Co-host?
just, I guess Jennifer's not there at the moment. I don't know who else, if anyone else needs to see the website, but you could,
Is there anybody who hasn't seen the website who needs to take a look at it? Clarice wants to take a look at it. So let me make you, or you can share, I think. Maybe you can, maybe you can't.
I mean, if
you
I'm
gotta
the
make me
only one,
co-host too.
if I'm the only one, I mean, I could do it on my own, but
Well,
That's good.
it's good to review for everybody. I mean, Alice is going to
It's
be
really quick.
teaching this in the future, and so she needs to see how it goes.
Yeah.
By the way, wasn't tonight's session pretty good, Alice? I mean, pretty inspiring from Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
So glad that you've been, making an attempt, more than that, but actually coming to all these sessions when, it's sort of like, you don't have to do it 100% or whatever it is, but it's obviously you're interested, and we feel good about having you come into classes here.
Yeah, make me co-host. I need to be a co-host.
Didn't I do that?
Nope. Yeah, no, you did. Okay, now it's working. Okay. So here's the website. It's just www.livelifestylemedicine.com. It's just livelifestylemedicine.com, all one word, and then .com. And then here's the home page. So you can sign up for the weekly class newsletter here at the top of the home page. And then what I recommend people do, I'll kind of go over what's on the home page here a little bit, but just to scroll all the way down, about 2/3 of the way down the home page here, there's a full website tutorial right here. So if you scroll down to here, click the play button right here. It's about a 15-minute video of me giving you a whole detailed tour of everything on the website. So check that out as many times as you need to kind of get familiar. But yeah, so there's the newsletter. Here's the actual link to the classes every Tuesday night. There's this is the information for the classes at the Irving Grange that are going every Friday night. Here's the link to the Facebook group. Here's the joining the book club. You could just click on, this is Lisa's email right here. You could just join the book club through there. Again, with the health coaching, if you sign up for the weekly class newsletter, the information on the coaching is at the bottom of that newsletter. Comes out every Sunday, and so you can just scroll all the way down to the bottom of the newsletter, and there's a link that she put in the chat tonight that takes you to her calendar where you can sign up for the free health coaching. And then always the most recent class recording is always here. So in a couple days from now, tonight's class that we're doing right now will be recorded and it will be posted right here. We also have Eugene Plant-Based Providers is our nonprofit that has all basically through the sponsors everything, sponsors these classes, sponsors the in-person classes, all the different events that we do, the cooking demonstrations, the potlucks, the walks, all the stuff we do in the community is all through this website, this nonprofit. So you can check that out. And then the class schedule is at the bottom. But yeah, I won't go into more detail. I just wanted to show you what was on the homepage. But watch my tutorial that's down below, and you can get a review of what all these other resources are and all the other things that you have access to through these classes.
Cool.
That was helpful.
Well, 6 more minutes. The class has kind of flown by. There probably is another question or two somewhere in the class. Something's burning on your mind that you're thinking about. It doesn't necessarily have to be about this session. The site again, someone was asking me, it's the www.PCRM, Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM, www.pcrm.org. That's the site. Yes, Clarice.
I have a friend who really suffers from fibromyalgia. Can this be helpful for her?
Okay, so I'm going to play a video for you. I love questions like that I have a video for.
Oh, good.
Okay? And then you can make a decision, share it with your friends at some time, perhaps.
Okay.
And, you can find it on Dr. Greger's site. And so what I'm going to do here is call up that fibromyalgia, and it's going to be under here. I've got a complicated lifestyle here under autoimmune, and here it is, fibromyalgia. It's a short video, 3 minutes.
Raw vegan diets seem to really help reduce fibromyalgia symptoms. But what about just a mostly raw diet? That was tried next. Fibromyalgia engulfs patients in a downward, reinforcing cycle of unrestorative sleep, chronic pain, fatigue, inactivity, and depression. So they tested whether a mostly raw, and actually vegan diet would significantly improve fibromyalgia symptoms, and boy did it. FIQ is the standard survey designed specifically to measure the impact of fibromyalgia on a person's life. At the beginning of the study, they were doing pretty bad. By 2 months, though, they were doing significantly better, and by the end of the study, at 7 months, there were significant improvements in each one of these measures, so less physical impairment. They were feeling better, less absenteeism, less pain, fatigue, stiffness, anxiety, depression. In summary, a diet intervention using a mostly raw, pure vegetarian diet produced dramatic improvements in fibromyalgia syndrome symptoms. When this study was reviewed by Current Rheumatology Reports, the editor noted that it had the most impressive results of any recent fibromyalgia treatment study. For example, nearly 3 times the improvement that the Mayo Clinic reported for their fibromyalgia program. Yes, it was not a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, but as they note, it's difficult to design such a study when it comes to diet, since people tend to notice when they've switched to a vegan diet. So, raw vegan diets worked. Mostly raw vegan diets worked. Even just eating vegetarian seemed to help. What about just eating mostly vegetarian? That was the one tried most recently. Fibromyalgia symptoms put on a mostly vegetarian diet for 2 weeks and did not see any significant improvement. Maybe if they gave it more time, we don't know. Bottom line is that the best available science to date suggests eating plant-based diets, whether vegetarian or vegan, may help people with fibromyalgia. Just because the best science we have doesn't mean it's necessarily very good science, right? These were all very small, poorly controlled, relatively short-term studies. But what's the downside of giving it a try? Turns out that people with chronic widespread pain syndromes tend to eat pretty crappy diets, perhaps explaining their higher rates of other chronic diseases such as cancer and cardiovascular disease. So even if a healthy diet doesn't help their fibromyalgia symptoms, at least it may prevent them from falling ill with something else. The last thing someone who feels miserable all day needs is another disease.
So the name of that video, I search for fibromyalgia, and it will come up on his site, nutritionfacts.org. Mostly
you.
raw and vegan. You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Sure.
Anyone else? Are we good for tonight?
Yeah, for those new people too, if you want to try to get on this use the same link, we're going to have the Zoom option available for Friday night's class. So the in-person class on Friday night at 7 o'clock, we're still troubleshooting it, so we'll see how it works. We did do it last week, and everyone could hear it, but we had some issues with the camera. We'll give it a try again on Friday. So any of you that are new, it's an introduction class this coming Friday at 7 p.m. So if you can't make it in person, click on the same link you did for tonight and check it out, and you can tell us how it went if you were able to hear and see okay.
Doug.
NIH has a $50 billion a year budget, and I was reading a letter by the director to Congress requesting money, and in it says their mission is to seek knowledge to enhance health, lengthen life, and reduce illness and disability. I just wonder, does lifestyle medicine get their fair share?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where they get most of the money comes from the conferences and their education that they provide and the membership and things like that. I don't know where else American College of Lifestyle Medicine gets their funding, their money. I don't think they get. I doubt government gives them any money.
But it's a good thought.
Yeah.
This has been excellent. Thank you.
Glad that you could make it.
You'll see me again.
Okay. You'll see us again then. Lisa, thank you so much for spending the time and doing your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Good to see everyone.
And Scott, thank you. And I don't know if we'll be back next week. I see here it says live performance audio off. So we'll see what that means.
What live? What is it now?
It says I've got a note up here, live performance audio on off. And when I switched it to on, it kind of interrupted Lisa's presentation. So I don't know what happened.
I see. Oh yeah, you could just hear her feedback. You could hear her twice is what it was doing, echoing.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I've never seen that message before. We'll see what happens with the rendering. Anyway, everybody, have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Really great.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.